Dr. Sarah Chen had seen everything in her 15 years as head of emergency medicine at Metropolitan General Hospital. Gunshot wounds, overdoses, accidents that defied explanation, and injuries that would haunt her dreams. But nothing had prepared her for the moment when she pulled back the hospital gown and saw the mark that shouldn't exist on any living person. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights in Trauma Bay 7 cast their usual harsh glare across the sterile surfaces, creating shadows that seemed to dance with each passing medical cart. Dr. Sarah Chen moved through her rounds with the practiced efficiency of someone who had learned that hesitation in emergency medicine meant the difference between life and death. At 38, she had earned her reputation as one of the finest trauma surgeons on the East Coast, known for her steady hands and her ability to remain calm when chaos erupted around her. Metropolitan General Hospital served a population of over 2 million people, drawing cases from across 3 states when specialized care was needed. Sarah had built the trauma department from a struggling unit into a world-class facility that handled everything from routine emergencies to cases that other hospitals couldn't manage. Her team respected her not just for her surgical skills, but for her uncanny ability to spot details that others missed. Patterns and symptoms that revealed hidden diagnoses, connections between seemingly unrelated cases that led to breakthrough treatments. The morning shift at Metropolitan General followed a rhythm that had become as familiar as her own heartbeat. 7 a.m. rounds, case reviews in the conference room, surgical schedules that packed her day from dawn until well past sunset. Sarah thrived in this environment where precision meant survival and where every decision carried the weight of human life. She had grown up in a family of doctors, the daughter of immigrants who had built their medical practice from nothing, teaching her that excellence wasn't negotiable and that patients deserved nothing less than perfection. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez had been monitoring patient intake at Metropolitan General for 12 years. He was the kind of physician who found comfort in the steady flow of cases and the predictable patterns of medical emergencies. In his early 40s, with graying temples and chronic insomnia that came from too many overnight shifts, Marcus had developed an almost supernatural ability to spot anomalies in patient presentations. He could identify drug interactions from subtle changes in vital signs, recognize rare diseases from symptoms that other doctors dismissed as routine, and detect patterns that suggested something more complex was happening beneath the surface. Marcus had watched Sarah handle thousands of cases over the years. He had seen her maintain composure under pressure that would break most surgeons, memorize patient histories with photographic precision, and make split-second decisions that saved lives when protocols failed. There was something about her approach to medicine that reminded him of his own mentor, the same fierce dedication to uncovering truth regardless of how uncomfortable that truth might be. The morning that would change everything started like any other. Sarah had arrived at the hospital before sunrise, reviewing overnight cases and preparing for a surgical schedule that included 3 complex procedures. The emergency department was experiencing its usual controlled chaos, with ambulances arriving every few minutes and a waiting room filled with patients whose conditions ranged from minor injuries to life-threatening emergencies. At 9:15 a.m., the paramedics brought in a case that would shatter everything Sarah thought she knew about medicine, government oversight, and the patients she had sworn to protect. The woman appeared to be in her early 30s, unconscious and unresponsive, found collapsed in a downtown alley with no identification and no obvious signs of trauma. Her vital signs were stable but unusual, suggesting some kind of neurological event that the paramedics couldn't identify. Patient Jane Doe, as she was temporarily designated, presented a medical puzzle that immediately caught Sarah's attention. Her blood pressure was slightly elevated but within normal ranges. Her heart rate showed irregularities that didn't match any known cardiac conditions. Her pupil response was delayed but symmetrical. Most intriguingly, her skin showed signs of recent medical procedures, small puncture wounds that suggested repeated injections, but with healing patterns that didn't match any standard medical protocol. Sarah began her examination with the systematic thoroughness that had become her trademark. Temperature, pulse, respiration, blood pressure, all recorded with meticulous precision. Neurological responses tested through a series of reflex checks that revealed subtle abnormalities in coordination and reaction time. The woman's hands showed calluses consistent with physical labor, but her muscle tone suggested someone who maintained excellent physical conditioning despite whatever medical condition had caused her collapse. Marcus observed the examination from his position at the nursing station, noting the concentrated focus that Sarah brought to cases that defied easy explanation. He had learned to recognize the signs when she encountered something that challenged her medical understanding, the way she would pause to reassess findings that didn't fit established patterns, the methodical approach she used to eliminate possibilities until only the impossible remained. The initial blood work revealed anomalies that deepened the mystery rather than solving it. White blood cell counts that suggested recent exposure to unknown pathogens, liver enzyme levels that indicated processing of substances not found in standard toxicology screens. Most puzzling, her blood chemistry showed markers that resembled those found in patients undergoing experimental medical treatments, but with signatures that didn't match any known pharmaceutical compounds. Sarah ordered additional tests, including imaging studies that might reveal internal injuries or abnormalities that could explain the unusual presentation. The CT scan showed no signs of head trauma, but revealed something far more disturbing. The woman's internal organs displayed modification patterns that suggested surgical intervention at a level of sophistication that exceeded anything available in conventional medicine. Her cardiovascular system showed signs of enhancement that shouldn't be possible with current technology. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, the hospital's chief radiologist, called Sarah to review the imaging results personally. Elizabeth was known for her conservative approach to interpretation, preferring to report only what could be definitively confirmed rather than speculating about anomalies that might have alternative explanations. But the images from Jane Doe's scans left her struggling to maintain her professional objectivity. "Sarah," Elizabeth said, her voice carrying the uncertainty of someone who had spent 20 years reading medical images without encountering anything like this. "These scans show modifications to major organ systems that I can't explain through conventional medical procedures. The cardiovascular enhancements alone would require surgical techniques that don't exist in any medical literature I'm familiar with." Sarah studied the images with growing concern, noting details that confirmed her suspicions that this patient represented something far beyond routine emergency medicine. The modifications were too precise to be accidental, too sophisticated to be the result of black market medical procedures, too integrated with natural systems to be anything other than advanced biomedical engineering. As the morning progressed, additional test results continued to deepen the mystery surrounding Jane Doe's condition. Her DNA analysis revealed genetic markers that suggested exposure to experimental gene therapy, but with modification patterns that exceeded anything currently available in legitimate medical research. Her brain imaging showed neural pathway enhancements that could theoretically improve cognitive processing and sensory perception, but through methods that had never been successfully implemented in human subjects. Marcus found himself spending more time than usual monitoring Jane Doe's case, drawn by the accumulating evidence that this patient represented something unprecedented in his medical experience. The combination of physical enhancements, chemical modifications, and surgical alterations suggested a level of human experimentation that crossed ethical boundaries and legal limitations. But the sophistication of the work implied resources and expertise that could only come from major medical institutions or government research programs. Sarah requested consultation with Dr. James Morrison, the hospital's ethics committee chairman, and a specialist in medical research oversight. Morrison had built his career on ensuring that experimental medical procedures followed strict ethical guidelines and legal protocols. He had investigated numerous cases of unauthorized human experimentation over the years, but had never encountered evidence of modifications at this level of advancement and integration. The consultation took place in the secure conference room, typically reserved for cases involving legal complications or ethical concerns. Morrison reviewed the test results and imaging studies with the methodical attention he brought to complex ethical investigations. His expression grew increasingly troubled as the scope of the modifications became clear through detailed medical documentation. "Dr. Chen," Morrison said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who understood the implications of what they were discussing, "These modifications represent a level of human experimentation that violates every ethical standard and legal limitation governing medical research. The sophistication suggests a program with substantial funding and advanced technical capabilities, but with no oversight or accountability mechanisms." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Sarah felt a growing sense of unease as the medical evidence painted a picture of systematic human experimentation conducted outside the boundaries of legitimate medical research. The patient lying unconscious in Trauma Bay 7 wasn't just a medical mystery. She was evidence of a research program that treated human beings as experimental subjects without consent, oversight, or ethical limitations. But the most disturbing revelation was yet to come. As Sarah prepared to conduct a more comprehensive physical examination, including assessment of the injection sites and surgical modification areas, she would discover something that would transform a medical mystery into a national security crisis, something that would reveal the true scope of the research program that had created Jane Doe and the network of individuals responsible for treating human beings as experimental laboratory subjects. The afternoon shift brought a change in hospital staffing, but Sarah remained focused on Jane Doe's case, driven by medical curiosity and growing concern about the ethical implications of what she was discovering. The patient remained unconscious, but her vital signs had stabilized within normal ranges, suggesting that whatever had caused her collapse was temporary rather than life-threatening. Dr. Patricia Webb, the hospital's chief of internal medicine, joined Sarah for the comprehensive examination that would assess the full extent of the patient's modifications. Patricia had specialized in rare diseases and unusual medical presentations throughout her 25-year career, but she had never encountered a case that combined so many different types of experimental interventions in a single patient. The examination began with assessment of the visible injection sites, small puncture wounds distributed across the patient's arms, legs, and torso, in patterns that suggested systematic administration of experimental compounds over an extended period. The healing patterns indicated recent activity, probably within the past month, but with scarring that suggested the injections had been ongoing for years. Sarah documented each site with photographic precision, noting the professional quality of the injection techniques and the absence of infection or complications that would typically result from unauthorized medical procedures. Whoever had administered these injections possessed advanced medical training and access to sterile procedures and high-quality pharmaceutical compounds. The surgical modification sites revealed even more sophisticated intervention. Small incisions, healed with precision that exceeded normal surgical standards, marked locations where electronic devices had been implanted and later removed. The tissue showed signs of integration with foreign materials, suggesting that the implants had been designed for long-term compatibility with human biological systems. Patricia examined the modifications with growing amazement and horror, recognizing techniques that pushed the boundaries of current medical technology while violating every ethical principle governing human experimentation. The work demonstrated capabilities that exceeded anything available in legitimate medical research, suggesting access to classified research programs or international collaboration with entities that operated outside legal oversight. As Sarah prepared to remove the patient's remaining clothing for complete physical assessment, she noticed something that made her pause. The hospital gown had shifted during the examination, revealing a portion of the patient's back that showed what appeared to be a marking or tattoo just below the shoulder blade. The design was small, precise, and unlike anything Sarah had seen in her years of treating patients with various forms of body art. "Patricia," Sarah said, her voice carrying the tension of someone who suspected she was about to discover something significant, "I need you to see this before I proceed with the complete examination." Patricia moved to assist with the patient positioning, helping to expose the marking that had caught Sarah's attention. What they saw made both physicians freeze in recognition and disbelief. The marking wasn't a tattoo or artistic design, but a classification symbol that both doctors recognized from their years of working with government health agencies and military medical facilities. The symbol consisted of a series of geometric patterns surrounding alphanumeric codes that indicated classification levels, project designations, and subject identification numbers. It was the kind of marking used to identify participants in classified medical research programs, but with security levels that exceeded anything either physician had encountered in legitimate government medical research. Sarah felt her heart rate increase as she recognized the implications of what they had discovered. Jane Doe wasn't just a victim of unauthorized human experimentation. She was a participant in a classified research program that operated at levels of secrecy that suggested national security implications. The marking on her back identified her as Subject 347 in a program designated Black Phoenix, with classification levels that indicated involvement of the highest levels of government and military research organizations. Patricia immediately understood the gravity of what they had uncovered. Her hands trembled slightly as she photographed the marking, knowing that they were documenting evidence of a research program that operated outside congressional oversight and public accountability. The classification levels indicated that Jane Doe had been subjected to experimental procedures as part of a program that treated human beings as expendable research assets. Dr. Chen, Patricia said, her voice barely above a whisper, this marking indicates participation in a research program that operates at classification levels reserved for the most sensitive national security projects. If this patient is subject 347, then there are at least 346 other human beings who have been subjected to similar experimental procedures without public knowledge or oversight. Sarah stared at the marking, understanding that her medical oath to do no harm had just collided with evidence of systematic human experimentation conducted by the very government agencies that were supposed to protect public health and safety. The woman lying unconscious before them wasn't just a patient in need of medical care. She was evidence of a research program that violated every ethical principle governing medical research and human rights. Marcus had been monitoring the examination from the nursing station, noting the extended time that Sarah and Patricia were spending with Jane Doe's case and the serious expressions that suggested they had discovered something significant. As the afternoon progressed, he noticed increased activity around Trauma Bay 7, with additional consultations and documentation that indicated the case had moved beyond routine medical care into something more complex and potentially sensitive. The hospital's security protocols required notification of administration whenever cases involved potential legal complications or government agency involvement. Sarah faced a decision that would determine not only Jane Doe's future medical care, but potentially expose a research program that operated in violation of every ethical and legal standard governing human experimentation. But before she could decide how to proceed, Jane Doe began to regain consciousness, opening her eyes for the first time since her arrival at Metropolitan General. Her gaze was sharp and alert, focused with an intensity that suggested complete awareness of her surroundings and circumstances. When she spoke, her voice carried the calm authority of someone accustomed to high-stress situations and complex operational requirements. "Where am I?" she asked, her words clear and precise, despite hours of unconsciousness. Sarah approached the bedside with professional calm, though her mind raced with questions about the patient's identity, the research program that had modified her body, and the implications of treating someone who represented evidence of classified human experimentation. "You're at Metropolitan General Hospital," Sarah said. "You were found unconscious downtown and brought here for medical evaluation. I'm Dr. Chen, and this is Dr. Webb. Can you tell us your name?" Jane Doe's response would shatter any remaining illusion that this was a routine medical case and reveal the true scope of the research program that had created her. Her answer would expose a network of classified medical facilities, government research programs, and human experimentation that reached into the highest levels of national security organizations. "My name is Agent Lisa Park," she said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who understood the significance of what she was revealing, "and I need to speak with whoever is in charge of hospital security immediately. My cover has been compromised, and there are people looking for me who will kill anyone who gets in their way." Sarah felt the medical mystery transform into a national security crisis, as she realized that Jane Doe wasn't just a victim of human experimentation, but an active participant in operations that operated at the intersection of medical research and intelligence activities. The classification marking on her back wasn't just evidence of research participation, but identification of an operative whose very existence was classified at levels that most government officials would never access. The trauma bay that had contained a routine medical emergency now held evidence of a research program that treated human beings as experimental assets, an intelligence operative whose cover had been blown, and two physicians who had stumbled into a classified world that operated beyond public oversight and legal accountability. Marcus watched the transformation of Jane Doe's case from routine emergency medicine into something that would require notification of federal agencies and activation of security protocols that Metropolitan General had never needed to implement. The quiet efficiency of the hospital's afternoon shift was about to be disrupted by the arrival of government agents, security personnel, and medical experts who specialized in cases that couldn't be acknowledged or discussed publicly. Sarah realized that her oath to protect patient welfare had just collided with national security considerations that exceeded her understanding and authority. The woman lying in Trauma Bay 7 wasn't just seeking medical care, she was seeking sanctuary from a research program that had modified her body and mind in ways that pushed the boundaries of human enhancement while violating every ethical principle governing medical treatment. But Agent Lisa Park had one more revelation that would expose the true scope of the conspiracy that had created her and hundreds of other enhanced operatives. A revelation that would transform Sarah's understanding of modern medicine, government research programs, and the extent to which human beings were being used as experimental subjects in pursuit of capabilities that exceeded natural human limitations. The Black Phoenix program isn't just about human enhancement, Lisa said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had witnessed the full scope of the research activities. It's about creating operatives who can survive in environments and situations that would kill normal human beings. But the research has expanded beyond military applications into civilian populations, and the people running the program have lost any connection to ethical limitations or legal accountability. Sarah felt the weight of that revelation settle over the trauma bay like a heavy shroud. The woman before them represented evidence of a research program that treated human enhancement as a tool for creating superior intelligence operatives, but with implications that extended far beyond military applications into areas that threatened the very foundation of medical ethics and human rights. The afternoon shift at Metropolitan General Hospital was about to become the epicenter of a crisis that would expose classified research programs, challenge the ethical foundations of modern medicine, and reveal the extent to which government agencies were willing to violate human rights in pursuit of capabilities that exceeded the limitations of natural human biology. Marcus began implementing security protocols that would isolate Trauma Bay 7 from routine hospital operations, while Sarah faced decisions that would determine not only Lisa Park's immediate medical care, but potentially expose a research program that operated in violation of every legal and ethical standard governing human experimentation. The fluorescent lights continued their harsh illumination of Trauma Bay 7, but the shadows they created now seemed to hide secrets that reached into the highest levels of government research organizations and intelligence agencies. The routine medical emergency that had begun Sarah's day had transformed into evidence of systematic human experimentation conducted by agencies that operated beyond public oversight and legal accountability. Dr. Patricia Webb understood that the discovery of Agent Lisa Park and the Black Phoenix program represented a watershed moment in medical ethics and government accountability. The modifications documented in her examination revealed capabilities that exceeded current medical technology while violating every principle governing human research and experimentation. Sarah reached for the secure phone line that connected directly to hospital administration, knowing that the next few hours would determine whether Metropolitan General Hospital would become a sanctuary for someone seeking protection from classified research programs, or simply another location where government agencies could retrieve their experimental assets without public scrutiny or legal oversight. The call she was about to make would activate protocols that had never been tested, involve agencies that operated beyond public oversight, and challenge the very foundation of medical ethics that had guided her 15-year career in emergency medicine. But the woman lying in Trauma Bay 7 deserved protection, regardless of the political and legal complications that her case would create. Agent Lisa Park watched Sarah's internal struggle with the alert attention of someone who understood the implications of what she was asking. Her enhanced senses, products of years of experimental medical procedures, allowed her to monitor the stress responses and decision-making processes of the medical staff who now held her safety in their hands. "Doctor," Lisa said, her voice carrying the urgency of someone who understood the time constraints they were operating under, "the people who created me have resources and authority that exceed local law enforcement capabilities. They operate through legitimate government agencies, but with classification levels that place them beyond congressional oversight or public accountability. If they retrieve me, you'll never see any evidence that I existed, and anyone who helped me will face consequences that your hospital can't protect against." Sarah felt the weight of that warning as she realized that her decision to help Agent Lisa Park would potentially place her staff, her hospital, and her patients at risk from government agencies that operated beyond the reach of normal legal protections. But her medical oath demanded that she protect patient welfare regardless of political complications or personal risk. The secure line connected her directly to Dr. Robert Hayes, Metropolitan General's chief administrator and the only person at the hospital with authority to implement the emergency protocols that would be necessary to protect Agent Lisa Park while managing the government response that her case would inevitably trigger. "Dr. Hayes," Sarah said, her voice carrying the professional calm that masked the magnitude of what she was reporting. "I need you in Trauma Bay 7 immediately. We have a patient whose case involves classified government research programs and potential national security implications. I'm implementing isolation protocols and requesting immediate consultation with legal and ethics committees." The response was immediate and decisive. Dr. Hayes had built his administrative career on managing complex cases that involved legal complications and government agency interactions. He understood that Sarah's request indicated a situation that exceeded routine hospital protocols and would require coordination with federal agencies and security organizations. "Dr. Chen," Hayes replied, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to managing crisis situations, "implement full isolation protocols immediately. No staff enters Trauma Bay 7 without direct authorization. I'm contacting our legal department and activating security measures that will protect both the patient and hospital personnel until we can determine appropriate response procedures." Sarah felt a surge of relief as she realized that Metropolitan General Hospital would provide sanctuary for Agent Lisa Park while determining how to handle a case that existed at the intersection of medical ethics, national security, and government accountability. But she also understood that the next few hours would determine whether they could protect someone seeking refuge from classified research programs that operated beyond public oversight and legal limitations. Marcus began implementing the isolation protocols that would transform Trauma Bay 7 from a routine emergency treatment area into a secure facility that could protect Agent Lisa Park, while managing the government response that her case would inevitably generate. The afternoon shift that had begun with routine medical procedures was about to become the focal point of a crisis that would challenge every assumption about medical ethics, government research, and the extent to which human beings were being used as experimental subjects in pursuit of enhanced capabilities. The fluorescent lights of Trauma Bay 7 continued their harsh illumination, but now they revealed not just a medical emergency, but evidence of a research program that treated human enhancement as a tool for creating superior operatives while violating every ethical principle governing medical research and human rights. The woman lying conscious and alert on the examination table represented hundreds of other experimental subjects whose existence remained classified and whose welfare depended on the courage of medical professionals willing to challenge government agencies that operated beyond public accountability. Sarah understood that her career, her hospital, and potentially her personal safety would be at risk for protecting Agent Lisa Park. But her medical oath demanded nothing less than complete dedication to patient welfare, regardless of the political complications or legal challenges that such dedication might create. The afternoon at Metropolitan General Hospital was about to become the beginning of a confrontation between medical ethics and classified research programs, between individual human rights and national security considerations, between the obligation to protect patients and the power of government agencies that operated beyond congressional oversight and public accountability. Agent Lisa Park watched the medical staff prepare to protect her with the alert attention of someone who understood both the risks they were accepting and the courage required to challenge agencies that possessed resources and authority that exceeded local law enforcement capabilities. Her enhanced senses allowed her to monitor the stress levels and decision-making processes of people who were about to stake their careers and potentially their lives on protecting someone whose very existence challenged the ethical foundations of modern medicine and government research. The classification marking on her back identified her as Subject 347 in a program that had created hundreds of enhanced operatives through experimental procedures that violated every legal and ethical standard governing human research. But it also marked her as someone seeking sanctuary from the very agencies that had created her, someone whose testimony could expose research programs that treated human beings as expendable assets in pursuit of capabilities that exceeded natural human limitations. Dr. Sarah Chen prepared to face the most challenging case of her medical career, knowing that the decision she made in Trauma Bay 7 would determine not only Agent Lisa Park's immediate safety, but potentially expose a network of classified research facilities that conducted human experimentation without public knowledge, congressional oversight, or ethical accountability. The routine medical emergency that had begun her day had transformed into evidence of systematic government research programs that operated in violation of every principle governing medical ethics and human rights. But it had also become an opportunity to protect someone seeking refuge from agencies that treated human enhancement as a tool for creating superior operatives, while abandoning any connection to the ethical limitations that governed legitimate medical research. Sarah reached for the medical charts that would document Agent Lisa Park's case. knowing that every detail would be scrutinized by government agencies, legal experts, and medical ethics committees that would determine how to balance patient welfare against national security considerations. But she also knew that her primary obligation remained unchanged: to protect and heal, regardless of the political complications or personal risks that such dedication might create. The afternoon shift at Metropolitan General Hospital was about to become the epicenter of a crisis that would expose classified research programs, challenge the authority of government agencies that operated beyond public accountability, and test the courage of medical professionals willing to risk everything to protect patients whose very existence represented evidence of systematic human experimentation, conducted in violation of every ethical and legal standard governing medical research. The fluorescent lights of Trauma Bay 7 illuminated not just a medical emergency, but the beginning of a confrontation between individual human rights and classified research programs that treated enhancement as a tool for creating operatives who could operate beyond the limitations of natural human biology. The woman lying alert and conscious on the examination table represented both the achievements and the moral failures of research programs that pursued human enhancement while abandoning the ethical principles that governed legitimate medical research. Dr. Patricia Webb understood that the discovery of Agent Lisa Park and the Black Phoenix program would challenge every assumption about medical ethics, government accountability, and the extent to which research programs were willing to violate human rights in pursuit of capabilities that exceeded natural human limitations. The modifications documented in her examination revealed a level of human experimentation that operated beyond congressional oversight and public accountability, treating human beings as experimental assets rather than individuals deserving protection and respect. Sarah prepared to document the most significant case of her medical career, knowing that Agent Lisa Park's testimony would expose research programs that conducted human experimentation while operating beyond the reach of legal oversight and ethical accountability. But she also prepared to protect someone seeking sanctuary from the very agencies that had created her. Someone whose welfare depended on the courage of medical professionals willing to challenge government organizations that possessed resources and authority that exceeded local law enforcement capabilities. The afternoon at Metropolitan General Hospital had become the beginning of a confrontation that would expose the true scope of classified research programs, challenge the authority of agencies that operated beyond public oversight, and test the willingness of medical professionals to risk everything in defense of ethical principles that governed legitimate medical research and human rights. Agent Lisa Park represented both the scientific achievements and moral failures of research programs that pursued human enhancement while abandoning every ethical limitation that protected experimental subjects from exploitation and abuse. Her presence in Trauma Bay 7 would force a reckoning between medical ethics and national security considerations, between individual human rights and classified research programs that treated enhancement as a tool for creating operatives who could operate beyond the limitations of natural human biology. The classification marking that identified her as Subject 347 in the Black Phoenix program also marked her as someone seeking protection from agencies that had treated her as an experimental asset rather than a human being deserving respect and ethical treatment. Her testimony would expose hundreds of other enhanced operatives whose existence remained classified and whose welfare depended on the willingness of medical professionals to challenge government agencies that operated beyond the reach of congressional oversight and public accountability. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in Trauma Bay 7, facing the most challenging case of her 15-year medical career, but also the opportunity to protect someone whose very existence challenged the ethical foundations of modern medical research and government accountability. The routine emergency that had begun her day had transformed into evidence of systematic human experimentation conducted by agencies that operated in violation of every legal and ethical standard governing medical research and human rights. Dr. Robert Hayes arrived in Trauma Bay 7 within minutes of Sarah's call, his usual composed demeanor replaced by the focused intensity he reserved for situations that threatened to exceed the hospital's normal operational parameters. At 52, Hayes had managed Metropolitan General through everything from natural disasters to terrorist attacks, but he had never faced a case that involved classified government research programs and potential national security implications. Agent Lisa Park observed his arrival with the heightened awareness that her enhanced senses provided, noting the stress markers in his posture and breathing that indicated someone preparing for a complex crisis management situation. Her modifications allowed her to assess threat levels and individual capabilities with precision that exceeded normal human perception, skills that had kept her alive through 7 years of operations that officially didn't exist. "Dr. Hayes," Sarah said, Maintaining the professional calm that had guided her through 15 years of emergency medicine, our patient has revealed information that places this case beyond routine medical protocols. She's identified herself as a government operative who has been subjected to experimental medical procedures as part of a classified research program. Hayes studied the medical documentation that Sarah had prepared, noting the sophisticated modifications revealed through imaging and laboratory analysis. His administrative experience had exposed him to cases involving government agencies and classified medical research, but never at the level of complexity and security classification that Agent Park's case represented. Agent Park, Hayes said, addressing Lisa directly with the respect due to someone whose situation exceeded normal hospital protocols, I need to understand what level of threat we're dealing with and what resources will be required to ensure your safety and our staff's protection. Lisa's response was delivered with the calm precision of someone accustomed to briefing senior officials on complex operational situations. Dr. Hayes, the Black Phoenix program operates through multiple government agencies with classification levels that exceed congressional oversight. The research facilities conduct human experimentation using techniques that violate every ethical standard governing medical research. They have the authority and resources to retrieve their experimental subjects, regardless of legal obstacles or institutional protections. She paused, allowing the implications of that statement to settle before continuing with information that would transform the hospital's understanding of what they were facing. I'm not the only operative who has sought to escape the program. Over the past 3 years, at least 15 enhanced subjects have attempted to break their operational assignments and seek sanctuary through civilian institutions. None of them were successful. The program has resources that exceed local law enforcement capabilities and operates through legitimate government channels that provide legal cover for their retrieval operations. Hayes felt the weight of that revelation as he realized that Metropolitan General Hospital was about to become the focal point of a confrontation between medical ethics and classified research programs that possessed government authority and unlimited resources. The decision to protect Agent Park would potentially place his entire staff at risk from agencies that operated beyond normal legal limitations and public accountability. Dr. Patricia Webb had remained in Trauma Bay 7 during Hayes' briefing, continuing her medical assessment of Lisa's condition while monitoring the administrative decisions that would determine the hospital's response to this unprecedented situation. Her 25 years of medical experience had exposed her to numerous cases involving ethical complications and legal challenges, but never a situation that involved active government research programs and classified human experimentation. Patricia approached Hayes with the careful professionalism that characterized her interactions with hospital administration, but her voice carried the urgency of someone who understood the medical implications of what they had discovered. Dr. Hayes, the modifications documented in Agent Park's examination represent a level of human experimentation that violates every ethical principle governing medical research. If the Black Phoenix program has created hundreds of enhanced operatives through similar procedures, we're looking at systematic human rights violations that exceed anything in modern medical history. Hayes understood the ethical obligations that Patricia was highlighting, but he also recognized the practical limitations of a civilian hospital confronting government agencies with unlimited authority and resources. The decision to protect Agent Park would require coordination with federal agencies, legal experts, and medical ethics committees while managing security concerns that exceeded normal hospital capabilities. Marcus continued monitoring the situation from the nursing station, noting the increased activity around Trauma Bay 7 and the serious expressions that indicated the case had moved far beyond routine medical care into areas that threatened the hospital's normal operations. His 12 years of experience had taught him to recognize when cases transcended medical treatment and entered territories that involved legal complications and government agency interactions. The secure communication system that connected Metropolitan General to federal agencies activated for the first time in the hospital's history, indicating that Hayes was implementing protocols designed for situations that involve national security considerations and classified government programs. Marcus watched the transformation of routine afternoon operations into crisis management procedures as the hospital prepared for interactions with agencies that operated beyond normal civilian oversight. Agent Lisa Park had been conscious for less than 2 hours, but her presence had already transformed Trauma Bay 7 from a medical treatment facility into the epicenter of a confrontation between ethical medical practice and classified research programs that treated human enhancement as a tool for creating superior operatives. Her testimony was revealing the scope of government research activities that operated in violation of every legal and ethical standard governing human experimentation. The Black Phoenix program began as a military research initiative focused on enhancing soldier capabilities for extreme operational environments, Lisa explained to the medical staff gathered around her bedside. The initial research was conducted through legitimate channels with appropriate oversight and ethical protocols. But over the past 5 years, the program has expanded beyond military applications into civilian populations and has abandoned any connection to ethical limitations or legal accountability. Sarah documented Lisa's testimony with the meticulous attention she brought to complex medical cases, understanding that every detail would be scrutinized by government agencies, legal experts, and medical ethics committees. But she also recognized that Lisa's account was revealing research activities that violated every principle governing medical ethics and human rights. The research facilities operate through a network of legitimate medical institutions and government agencies, Lisa continued, her enhanced memory allowing her to provide precise details about locations, personnel, and operational procedures. The subjects are recruited through various channels, some voluntary but most coerced through legal, financial, or family pressures. The experimental procedures are conducted without informed consent and with no consideration for long-term health effects or psychological consequences. Patricia felt a growing sense of horror as Lisa described research activities that treated human beings as expendable experimental assets rather than individuals deserving protection and ethical treatment. The scope of the program suggested systematic human rights violations conducted with government authority and institutional support. How many subjects? Patricia asked, though she dreaded the answer. Lisa's response confirmed the worst fears about the scope of the Black Phoenix program. Based on the classification numbers and facility documentation I've accessed, there are at least 400 enhanced operatives currently active in various stages of experimental modification. But the program also maintains research facilities that conduct preliminary testing on civilian populations, probably involving thousands of additional subjects who are unaware of their participation in experimental procedures. Hayes understood that Lisa's testimony was revealing a research program that exceeded anything in the history of unauthorized human experimentation. The scope suggested government agencies that had abandoned all ethical limitations in pursuit of human enhancement capabilities, treating civilian populations as sources of experimental subjects rather than citizens deserving protection. The afternoon shift at Metropolitan General Hospital had become a crisis management operation as Hayes coordinated with legal experts, medical ethics committees, and security personnel to determine how to protect Agent Lisa Park while managing the government response that her case would inevitably trigger. The hospital's normal operations continued around Trauma Bay 7, but the staff understood that they were witnessing something unprecedented in modern medical ethics. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, the hospital's chief legal counsel, arrived within an hour of Hayes' notification, bringing expertise in medical law and government agency interactions that would be crucial for navigating the legal complexities of Agent Park's case. Morrison had built her career on protecting hospitals and medical staff from legal challenges and government overreach, but she had never faced a situation involving classified research programs and enhanced government operatives. Morrison reviewed the medical documentation and Lisa's testimony with the careful attention she brought to cases involving potential legal complications and government agency conflicts. Her analysis revealed the complex intersection of medical ethics, national security law, and human rights protections that would determine the hospital's obligations and limitations in protecting Agent Park. Agent Park, Morrison said, addressing Lisa with the professional respect due to someone whose legal status existed in areas beyond normal civilian protections, your situation involves classified government programs that operate under legal authorities that exceed normal oversight mechanisms. The hospital's ability to protect you depends on our understanding of what legal protections apply to enhanced operatives and what authority government agencies possess for retrieving their experimental subjects. Lisa's response revealed the legal vulnerabilities that made enhanced operatives particularly susceptible to government control and retrieval. Ms. Morrison, enhanced operatives exist in a legal gray area that provides minimal protection from the agencies that created us. We're classified as government assets rather than individuals with constitutional rights. The legal frameworks that protect normal citizens don't apply to subjects who have been modified through classified research programs. Morrison felt the implications of that statement as she realized that Agent Park's legal status placed her beyond normal constitutional protections. while making the hospital vulnerable to government agencies with authority that exceeded civilian law enforcement capabilities. The decision to protect Lisa would require legal strategies that had never been tested in situations involving enhanced government operatives and classified research programs. Sarah continued her medical assessment of Lisa's condition, documenting the physical and psychological effects of 7 years of experimental procedures and operational assignments. The examination revealed the human cost of research programs that pursued enhancement while abandoning ethical considerations and long-term health protections. The modifications show remarkable integration with natural biological systems, Sarah observed, noting the sophisticated surgical techniques and biomedical engineering that had been used to enhance Lisa's capabilities. But they also show signs of stress and deterioration that suggest the enhancements weren't designed for long-term stability or subject welfare. Lisa confirmed Sarah's medical assessment with details that revealed the expendable nature of enhanced operatives in the Black Phoenix program. The enhancements are designed for operational effectiveness rather than subject longevity. Most enhanced operatives experience significant health deterioration within 5 to 7 years of modification. The program views this as acceptable operational costs rather than ethical failures requiring medical intervention. Patricia documented the long-term health implications of the enhancement procedures, understanding that Lisa's medical condition represented evidence of systematic human experimentation that violated every principle governing medical research and patient welfare. The sophisticated modifications had been achieved through techniques that treated human subjects as experimental assets rather than patients deserving ethical treatment and long-term care. Hayes coordinated with Metropolitan General's security department to implement protection protocols that would safeguard Agent Park while managing the government response that her case would inevitably generate. The hospital's security capabilities were designed for routine threats and emergency situations, not for confrontations with government agencies possessing unlimited authority and specialized resources. Captain Michael Torres, the hospital's chief of security, had 20 years of experience in law enforcement and private security, but he had never faced a situation involving enhanced government operatives and classified retrieval operations. His assessment of the hospital's defensive capabilities revealed significant limitations when confronting agencies with specialized training and advanced technical resources. Dr. Hayes Torres reported during a secure briefing in the hospital's command center, "Our security systems are designed for routine threats and emergency situations. If government agencies decide to retrieve Agent Park through force, we have minimal capability to prevent or resist such operations. Our legal protections depend on their willingness to respect civilian institutional authority, which Agent Park's testimony suggests they may not honor." Hayes understood the security limitations that Torres was highlighting, but he also recognized the ethical obligations that demanded protection for someone seeking sanctuary from research programs that violated human rights and medical ethics. The hospital's decision to protect Agent Park would require coordination with federal agencies and legal experts while accepting risks that exceeded normal institutional capabilities. Lisa monitored the security briefing through her enhanced hearing, noting the stress markers and tactical concerns that indicated the hospital staff's growing understanding of the challenges they faced in protecting her. Her modifications allowed her to assess threat levels and defensive capabilities with precision that revealed both the courage and the vulnerability of the medical staff who had chosen to help her. Agent Park, Torres addressed her directly during the security briefing. "I need to understand what specific threats we should prepare for and what capabilities the retrieval teams typically possess." Lisa's response provided tactical intelligence that would be crucial for the hospital's defensive preparations. The retrieval teams operate through legitimate government channels, typically arriving with official documentation and legal authority that civilian institutions find difficult to challenge. They possess advanced technical capabilities including electronic surveillance, communication interception, and non-lethal weapons designed to incapacitate enhanced operatives without permanent damage. She paused, allowing Torres to process the implications before continuing with information that revealed the scope of resources available to Black Phoenix retrieval operations. The teams are staffed by enhanced operatives with capabilities that exceed normal law enforcement training. They have access to classified intelligence about target locations and institutional vulnerabilities. Most importantly, they operate with legal immunity that protects them from criminal prosecution or civil liability for actions taken during retrieval operations. Torres felt the weight of that intelligence as he realized that the hospital's defensive preparations would be confronting teams with capabilities and authority that exceeded anything in his law enforcement experience. The protection of Agent Park would require strategies that balanced institutional security with the legal vulnerabilities created by challenging government agencies with unlimited authority. Morrison worked with federal legal experts to determine what constitutional protections might apply to Agent Park's situation and what legal mechanisms could be used to challenge government retrieval operations. Her research revealed the complex intersection of national security law, medical ethics, and human rights protections that would determine the hospital's legal standing in protecting enhanced operatives. The legal framework governing enhanced operatives has never been tested in civilian courts, Morrison reported to Hayes during an emergency legal briefing. Agent Park's classification as a government asset rather than an individual citizen creates constitutional questions that exceed existing legal precedents. Our ability to protect her depends on successfully challenging legal authorities that have never been subjected to civilian oversight or judicial review. Hayes understood the legal complexities that Morrison was navigating, but he also recognized the time constraints that limited the hospital's ability to develop comprehensive legal strategies before government agencies responded to Agent Park's disappearance. The decision to protect Lisa required immediate action, while accepting legal risks that could threaten the hospital's operational status and institutional independence. Sarah continued documenting Lisa's medical condition and the evidence of experimental procedures that violated ethical standards governing human research. Her examination revealed the sophistication of the enhancement techniques while exposing the human costs of research programs that abandoned ethical considerations in pursuit of operational capabilities. The enhancement procedures show remarkable technical achievement, Sarah noted in her medical report, but they also demonstrate complete disregard for subject welfare and long-term health consequences. The modifications were clearly designed for short-term operational effectiveness rather than sustainable human enhancement or ethical medical treatment. Lisa provided additional testimony about the research facilities and experimental procedures that had created hundreds of enhanced operatives through systematic human experimentation. Her enhanced memory allowed her to provide precise details about locations, personnel, and procedures that would be crucial for any investigation into the Black Phoenix program's activities. The research is conducted at 17 facilities across 12 states, Lisa explained to the medical staff documenting her testimony. The primary facility is located beneath the Denver Federal Medical Center, with secondary operations at military installations and private research laboratories that operate under government contracts. The research staff includes medical professionals who have been granted immunity from ethical oversight and legal accountability. Patricia felt a growing sense of outrage as Lisa described research activities that violated every principle governing medical ethics and human rights. The scope of the program suggested systematic collaboration between government agencies and medical professionals who had abandoned their oath to do no harm in pursuit of research objectives that treated human beings as expendable experimental assets. Hayes coordinated with Metropolitan General's board of directors to ensure institutional support for the decision to protect Agent Park despite the legal and security risks that her case presented. The hospital's leadership understood the ethical obligations that demanded protection for someone seeking sanctuary from research programs that violated human rights, but they also recognized the potential consequences of challenging government agencies with unlimited authority and resources. The board meeting was conducted through secure communication channels to prevent interception by government surveillance operations that might be monitoring the hospital's communications. The discussion revealed the complex balance between institutional survival and ethical obligations that characterize the hospital's response to Agent Park's case. Dr. Catherine Walsh, the board's chairman and a specialist in medical ethics, supported the decision to protect Agent Park while understanding the risks that such protection would create for the hospital and its staff. Her analysis of the ethical implications emphasized the fundamental obligation to protect patients from research programs that violated human rights and medical ethics. "We have an obligation to protect Agent Park that transcends the legal and security risks created by her case," Walsh stated during the emergency board meeting. The Black Phoenix program represents systematic human experimentation that violates every ethical principle governing medical research. Our decision to provide sanctuary sends a message that civilian medical institutions will not tolerate government research programs that treat human beings as expendable experimental assets. Hayes felt the weight of institutional support as the board voted unanimously to protect Agent Park while accepting the legal and security consequences that such protection would create. The decision represented a watershed moment in medical ethics and government accountability, establishing civilian medical institutions as sanctuaries for individuals seeking protection from classified research programs. Marcus monitored the implementation of security protocols that would transform Trauma Bay 7 into a protected facility while maintaining the hospital's normal operations. His 12 years of experience in medical communications had never included coordination with federal agencies and security experts, but he adapted quickly to the complex requirements of protecting enhanced government operatives. The afternoon shift at Metropolitan General Hospital had become a crisis management operation that would test the institution's capabilities and commitment to medical ethics. The staff understood that they were participating in something unprecedented in modern medical history, protecting someone whose very existence challenged the ethical foundations of government research and medical practice. Agent Lisa Park observed the hospital's transformation with the alert attention of someone whose enhanced senses allowed her to monitor stress levels and tactical preparations throughout the facility. Her modifications provided tactical intelligence about the hospital's defensive capabilities, while revealing the courage and dedication of medical staff who had chosen to risk everything to protect her. The classification marking that identified her as Subject 347 in the Black Phoenix program also marked her as evidence of systematic human experimentation conducted by government agencies that operated beyond congressional oversight and public accountability. Her testimony was exposing research activities that violated every legal and ethical standard governing human experimentation, while revealing the scope of government programs that treated human enhancement as a tool for creating superior operatives. Dr. Sarah Chen prepared for the most challenging night of her medical career, understanding that the decisions made in Trauma Bay 7 would determine not only Agent Park's immediate safety, but potentially expose research programs that conducted human experimentation without public knowledge or ethical oversight. The routine medical emergency that had begun her day had transformed into evidence of systematic government research programs that violated human rights while pursuing capabilities that exceeded natural human limitations. Patricia coordinated with medical ethics experts and human rights organizations to document the evidence of experimental procedures that had been used to create enhanced operatives through systematic human experimentation. Her documentation would provide crucial evidence for any investigation into the Black Phoenix program's activities, while establishing legal precedents for protecting enhanced operatives seeking sanctuary from government research programs. Morrison worked through the night to develop legal strategies that could protect Agent Park, while challenging government agencies that possessed authority and resources that exceeded civilian law enforcement capabilities. Her research revealed constitutional questions that had never been tested in situations involving enhanced government operatives and classified research programs. Torres implemented security measures that would protect the hospital while preparing for potential confrontation with government retrieval teams possessing capabilities and authority that exceeded normal law enforcement experience. His tactical planning balanced institutional security with the legal vulnerabilities created by challenging agencies that operated with government immunity and unlimited resources. Hayes maintained coordination with federal agencies and legal experts while managing the institutional transformation required to protect Agent Park without compromising the hospital's normal operations. His crisis management experience was being tested by a situation that exceeded anything in modern medical administration. The evening shift at Metropolitan General Hospital inherited a crisis that would determine whether civilian medical institutions could provide sanctuary for individuals seeking protection from government research programs that violated human rights and medical ethics. The staff understood that their actions would establish precedents for medical ethics and government accountability that would influence future cases involving enhanced operatives and classified research programs. Agent Lisa Park represented both the scientific achievements and moral failures of research programs that pursued human enhancement, while abandoning every ethical limitation that protected experimental subjects from exploitation and abuse. Her presence in Trauma Bay 7 was forcing a confrontation between medical ethics and national security considerations that would determine whether civilian institutions could challenge government agencies that operated beyond public oversight and legal accountability. The fluorescent lights of Trauma Bay 7 continued their harsh illumination, but now they revealed not just a medical case but evidence of systematic government research programs that treated human enhancement as a tool for creating operatives who could operate beyond the limitations of natural human biology. The woman lying alert and conscious on the examination table represented hundreds of other enhanced subjects whose existence remained classified, and whose welfare depended on the courage of medical professionals willing to challenge government agencies that possessed unlimited authority and resources. Sarah understood that her medical oath demanded protection for Agent Park regardless of the legal complications and security risks that such protection would create. The classification marking that identified Lisa as Subject 347 in the Black Phoenix program also marked her as someone seeking sanctuary from the very agencies that had created her through experimental procedures that violated every ethical principle governing medical research. The evening at Metropolitan General Hospital was becoming the beginning of a confrontation that would expose the true scope of classified research programs while testing the willingness of medical professionals to risk everything in defense of ethical principles that governed legitimate medical research and human rights. Agent Park's testimony was revealing research activities that operated beyond congressional oversight while treating human beings as expendable assets in pursuit of capabilities that exceeded natural human limitations. The hospital's decision to protect Lisa represented a watershed moment in medical ethics and government accountability, establishing civilian medical institutions as sanctuaries for individuals seeking protection from research programs that violated human rights while operating with government authority and unlimited resources. The evening shift would determine whether such protection could be sustained against agencies that possessed the legal authority and technical capabilities to retrieve their experimental subjects, regardless of civilian institutional resistance. Dr. Patricia Webb prepared for a night that would test every principle of medical ethics and human rights that had guided her 25-year career. The modifications documented in Agent Park's examination represented evidence of systematic human experimentation that violated every standard governing medical research while revealing the scope of government programs that treated enhancement as a tool for creating superior operatives. Marcus continued monitoring communications while implementing security protocols that would protect the hospital's operations during the confrontation with government agencies that was becoming inevitable. His technical expertise was being adapted to support defensive measures against retrieval teams with capabilities that exceeded normal law enforcement experience. The classification levels revealed by Agent Park's testimony indicated government research programs that operated beyond congressional oversight while possessing authority and resources that exceeded civilian institutional capabilities. Her presence at Metropolitan General Hospital was challenging the legal and ethical frameworks that governed medical practice while exposing research activities that violated human rights and constitutional protections. The evening shift inherited responsibility for protecting someone whose very existence represented evidence of systematic government research programs that treated human beings as experimental assets rather than individuals deserving ethical treatment and constitutional protection. The staff understood that their actions would determine whether civilian medical institutions could provide sanctuary for enhanced operatives seeking protection from the agencies that had created them through procedures that violated every principle governing medical ethics and human rights. The first signs of government response arrived at Metropolitan General Hospital at precisely 0347 hours, when 3 unmarked vehicles pulled into the emergency department parking lot with the coordinated precision of a tactical operation. Agent Lisa Park detected their approach through enhanced senses that allowed her to monitor electromagnetic signatures and vehicle movement patterns from her position in Trauma Bay 7. Her modifications providing early warning capabilities that exceeded normal human perception. Dr. Sarah Chen had remained at the hospital through the night, coordinating with the medical staff and security personnel who were implementing protection protocols for Agent Park. Her 15 years of emergency medicine had never included preparing for confrontation with government agencies, but her medical oath demanded protection for patients regardless of the political complications or personal risks that such protection might create. Captain Michael Torres monitored the arrival of the unmarked vehicles through the hospital's security system, noting the professional deployment patterns and communication discipline that indicated trained operatives rather than routine government personnel. His assessment confirmed Agent Park's warnings about the specialized capabilities and tactical training of Black Phoenix retrieval teams. The lead agent who entered the emergency department carried credentials that identified him as Special Agent David Kellerman from the Department of Health and Human Services, but his bearing and tactical awareness suggested military or intelligence training that exceeded normal civilian agency experience. His documentation appeared legitimate and carried authorization codes that demanded immediate compliance from civilian institutions. Agent Kellerman approached the reception desk with the calm authority of someone accustomed to institutional cooperation and immediate compliance. He presented his credentials to the night supervisor, with the expectation that government authority would override any civilian resistance or procedural obstacles. "I'm here to retrieve a patient who was brought to this facility earlier today," Kellerman stated, his voice carrying the professional tone that masks the operational urgency of his mission. The individual is a federal asset whose medical care falls under specialized government protocols that supersede civilian medical authority. Dr. Margaret Foster, the night shift supervisor, had been briefed on the security protocols surrounding Agent Park's case and understood the institutional decision to resist government retrieval operations. Her response was delivered with the professional courtesy that characterized Metropolitan General's interactions with government agencies, while firmly establishing the hospital's position regarding patient protection. "Agent Kellerman," Foster replied, maintaining the calm professionalism that masked her growing tension. "All patients at Metropolitan General Hospital receive medical care according to established protocols and ethical standards. Any requests for patient information or access must be processed through our administration and legal departments during normal business hours." Kellerman's expression revealed nothing, but his tactical positioning and communication with his team indicated someone preparing for resistance to his authority. The credentials he carried provided legal authority that civilian institutions typically found impossible to challenge. But Agent Park's case had activated protection protocols that the hospital was prepared to defend, regardless of government pressure. Dr. Robert Hayes arrived in the emergency department within minutes of Kellerman's appearance, bringing institutional authority and legal support that would be crucial for managing the confrontation with government retrieval operations. His administrative experience had prepared him for complex negotiations with federal agencies, but never in situations involving enhanced operatives and classified research programs. "Agent Kellerman," Hayes said, addressing the government operative with professional respect while establishing the hospital's position, "I'm Dr. Hayes, Chief Administrator for Metropolitan General Hospital. I understand you're seeking access to one of our patients, but any such requests must be processed through established legal procedures that protect patient rights and institutional authority." Kellerman's response revealed the government's expectation of immediate compliance and the legal authorities that typically overrode civilian institutional resistance. "Dr. Hayes, the individual you're harboring is a federal asset whose medical care falls under classified protocols that supersede civilian authority. Your cooperation is required under national security statutes that provide immunity from normal legal protections." Hayes felt the weight of government authority that Kellerman was invoking. But he also understood the ethical obligations that demanded protection for Agent Park, regardless of the legal complexities or institutional risks that such protection would create. The hospital's decision to resist government retrieval operations represented an unprecedented challenge to agencies that operated beyond normal civilian oversight. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison arrived to provide legal support for the hospital's position, bringing expertise in medical law and government agency interactions that would be crucial for navigating the complex legal authorities that Agent Kellerman was citing. Her analysis of the government's legal claims revealed both the scope of federal authority and the constitutional protections that might limit such authority in civilian medical settings. "Agent Kellerman," Morrison stated, addressing the government operative with the professional competence that characterized her legal practice, "Any federal authority over patient care must be balanced against constitutional protections and medical ethics that govern civilian healthcare institutions. Your credentials provide access to government facilities and personnel, but civilian medical institutions operate under different legal frameworks that protect patient rights and institutional autonomy." Kellerman's tactical team had positioned themselves throughout the emergency department with the professional discipline of operatives trained for resistance and confrontation. Their deployment patterns indicated preparation for both negotiation and more direct action if civilian cooperation could not be obtained through legal pressure and institutional intimidation. Agent Lisa Park monitored the confrontation through enhanced hearing that allowed her to track the government team's communications and tactical positioning from her secure location in Trauma Bay 7. Her modifications provided intelligence about their capabilities and intentions while revealing the escalating tension that indicated the situation was approaching critical decision points. The retrieval team possesses non-lethal incapacitation technology designed specifically for enhanced operatives, Lisa informed Dr. Sarah Chen through the secure communication system that had been established for coordination during the government response. Their tactical deployment indicates preparation for forced retrieval if negotiations fail to secure civilian cooperation. Sarah felt the weight of that intelligence as she realized that the hospital's protection of Agent Park was approaching a confrontation that could result in the use of force against civilian medical staff and institutional authority. The government's willingness to employ tactical operations against civilian healthcare institutions revealed the extent to which Black Phoenix program operated beyond normal legal limitations and ethical constraints. Dr. Patricia Webb coordinated with medical staff to implement emergency protocols that would protect patients and personnel while maintaining the hospital's normal operations during the government confrontation. Her 25 years of medical experience had never included preparing for tactical operations within civilian healthcare facilities, but her commitment to patient welfare demanded adaptation to unprecedented circumstances. Torres had positioned his security team to monitor the government operatives while avoiding escalation that could justify the use of force against civilian personnel. His tactical assessment revealed the significant disparity between hospital security capabilities and the specialized training and equipment possessed by Black Phoenix retrieval teams. The legal documentation that Agent Kellerman presented included authorization codes that claimed authority over any individual classified as a government asset, regardless of their current location or civilian institutional protection. Morrison's analysis revealed the broad scope of government authority while identifying constitutional limitations that might restrict such authority in civilian medical settings. Dr. Hayes, Morrison reported during a secure briefing in the hospital's command center, the government's legal claims are based on national security statutes that have never been tested in civilian courts. Their authority over enhanced operatives appears to exceed normal constitutional protections, but our obligation to protect patients may provide grounds for legal challenge to their retrieval operations. Hayes understood the legal complexities that Morrison was navigating, but he also recognized the immediate tactical situation that required decisions about how to resist government authority while protecting both Agent Park and the hospital staff who had chosen to defend her. The confrontation was testing legal and ethical principles that had never been challenged in situations involving enhanced operatives and classified research programs. Agent Kellerman requested direct communication with hospital administration to discuss the legal authorities and operational requirements that govern federal retrieval of classified assets. His tone suggested confidence in government authority, while indicating willingness to negotiate civilian cooperation rather than resort to more direct tactical methods. The secure conference room that hosted the negotiation between government and hospital representatives had been designed for complex legal discussions and administrative decisions, but had never been used for confrontations involving enhanced operatives and classified research programs. The conversation would determine whether civilian medical institutions could resist government retrieval operations, or whether federal authority superseded all institutional protections and patient rights. Dr. Hayes, Agent Kellerman began, his presentation delivered with the professional competence of someone accustomed to institutional cooperation. The individual you're protecting represents a significant security risk that requires immediate federal intervention. Her continued presence at civilian facilities creates operational vulnerabilities that threaten both institutional safety and national security considerations. Hayes responded with the institutional authority that had guided his administrative career, while emphasizing the ethical obligations that demanded protection for patients seeking sanctuary from research programs that violated human rights. Agent Kellerman: our primary obligation is patient welfare and medical ethics. The individual you're seeking has requested protection from research programs that appear to violate ethical standards governing medical treatment and human experimentation. Kellerman's response revealed the government's perspective on enhanced operatives and the legal frameworks that govern their status as federal assets rather than individuals with constitutional protections. Dr. Hayes: enhanced operatives exist within legal categories that provide minimal civilian protections while establishing federal authority over their medical care and operational assignments. Your institutional obligations are superseded by national security requirements that demand immediate compliance with federal retrieval operations. Morrison challenged the legal authorities that Kellerman was citing, emphasizing constitutional protections and medical ethics that limited government authority over civilian healthcare institutions. Agent Kellerman: federal authority over medical care must be balanced against constitutional protections that govern civilian institutions and patient rights. Your claims of unlimited authority over enhanced operatives have never been tested in civilian courts and may violate constitutional limitations on government power. The negotiation revealed the unprecedented nature of the legal and ethical questions surrounding enhanced operatives and civilian institutional authority. The government's claims of absolute authority over modified individuals conflicted with constitutional protections and medical ethics that govern civilian healthcare institutions, creating legal questions that exceeded existing precedents and judicial interpretation. Agent Park provided additional testimony about Black Phoenix retrieval operations and the tactics used to recover enhanced operatives who sought civilian sanctuary or attempted to escape government control. Her intelligence revealed operational procedures that violated constitutional protections, while demonstrating the extent to which the program operated beyond normal legal limitations and ethical constraints. Retrieval operations typically involve overwhelming display of federal authority combined with legal intimidation that civilian institutions find impossible to resist, Lisa explained to the hospital staff coordinating her protection. The teams possess specialized equipment and training designed to incapacitate enhanced operatives while minimizing institutional damage that could attract public attention or legal scrutiny. Sarah understood that Lisa's intelligence was revealing government operations that treated civilian institutions as extensions of federal authority rather than independent entities with constitutional protections and ethical obligations. The Black Phoenix program's approach to retrieval operations demonstrated systematic violation of institutional autonomy and patient rights in pursuit of operational control over enhanced assets. The hospital's board of directors convened an emergency session to review the government's retrieval demands and the institutional response that would determine Metropolitan General's commitment to patient protection despite federal pressure and legal intimidation. The decision would establish precedents for civilian medical institutions confronting government agencies that operated beyond normal constitutional limitations. Dr. Catherine Walsh, the board's chairman, emphasized the fundamental ethical obligations that demanded protection for patients seeking sanctuary from research programs that violated human rights and medical ethics. The board's discussion revealed institutional understanding of the risks involved in challenging federal authority, while affirming commitment to principles that transcended political pressure and government intimidation. Our obligation to protect patients from unethical research programs supersedes the legal and operational risks created by government pressure, Walsh stated during the emergency board session. Agent Park's testimony reveals systematic human experimentation that violates every ethical principle governing medical research. Our decision to provide sanctuary establishes civilian medical institutions as protectors of human rights against government programs that operate beyond constitutional limitations. The board voted unanimously to resist government retrieval operations while accepting the legal and operational consequences that such resistance would create for the hospital and its staff. The decision represented unprecedented challenge to federal authority while establishing civilian medical institutions as sanctuaries for individuals seeking protection from classified research programs. Agent Kellerman's tactical team had completed their assessment of hospital security capabilities and defensive positioning, preparing contingency plans for forced retrieval if negotiations failed to secure civilian cooperation. Their tactical preparations indicated professional competence in operations designed to overcome institutional resistance while minimizing public exposure and legal complications. Torres monitored the government team's tactical activities while coordinating with hospital security personnel to implement defensive measures that could protect Agent Park and civilian staff during potential confrontation. His assessment revealed significant limitations in civilian security capabilities when confronting specialized government operatives with advanced training and equipment. The afternoon brought additional government personnel, who reinforced Kellerman's team while escalating the federal pressure on civilian institutional authority. The expanded government presence indicated determination to retrieve Agent Park regardless of civilian resistance while demonstrating the resources available to Black Phoenix operations. Dr. Janet Coleman, a specialist in medical ethics and human rights, arrived to provide expert consultation on the ethical obligations surrounding Agent Park's case and the institutional response to government retrieval operations. Her analysis emphasized the unprecedented nature of the situation while supporting civilian resistance to research programs that violated fundamental human rights. The modifications documented in Agent Park's examination represent systematic human experimentation that violates every ethical standard governing medical research, Coleman stated during her consultation with hospital leadership. The government's claims of authority over enhanced operatives cannot supersede constitutional protections and medical ethics that govern civilian healthcare institutions. Our obligation to protect patients from unethical research transcends federal pressure and legal intimidation. Coleman's expert analysis provided institutional support for continued resistance to government retrieval operations, while emphasizing the broader implications of Agent Park's case for medical ethics and human rights protections. Her testimony would be crucial for any legal challenges to government authority over enhanced operatives and civilian institutional autonomy. Sarah continued coordinating Agent Park's medical care, while documenting the evidence of experimental procedures that violated ethical standards governing human research. Her medical assessment revealed ongoing health complications from enhancement procedures that prioritized operational capabilities over subject welfare and long-term medical stability. The enhancement modifications show signs of systematic deterioration that threatens Agent Park's long-term health and survival, Sarah reported to the medical staff coordinating her protection. The experimental procedures were clearly designed for short-term operational effectiveness rather than sustainable human enhancement or ethical medical treatment. Lisa provided additional intelligence about Black Phoenix research activities and the medical facilities that conducted human experimentation through systematic violation of ethical standards and legal protections. Her testimony revealed research programs that treated enhanced operatives as expendable assets, rather than individuals deserving medical care and ethical treatment. The primary research facility maintains medical staff who have been granted immunity from ethical oversight and legal accountability, Lisa explained to the hospital staff documenting her testimony. The experimental procedures are conducted without informed consent and with complete disregard for subject welfare or long-term health consequences. The program views enhanced operatives as government property rather than human beings deserving constitutional protection. Patricia coordinated with medical ethics experts and human rights organizations to document the evidence of systematic human experimentation revealed through Agent Park's case. Her documentation would provide crucial evidence for legal challenges to government research programs while establishing precedents for civilian institutional protection of enhanced operatives seeking sanctuary. The evening brought escalation in government pressure as Agent Kellerman's superiors demanded immediate resolution of the retrieval operation. The increased federal pressure indicated growing concern about public exposure of Black Phoenix activities while demonstrating government determination to maintain operational control over enhanced assets. Morrison worked with constitutional law experts to develop legal strategies that could challenge government authority over civilian medical institutions while protecting Agent Park from forced retrieval operations. Her research revealed constitutional questions that exceeded existing legal precedents while identifying potential grounds for judicial intervention in government operations. Hayes coordinated with federal legislators and human rights organizations to expose the Black Phoenix program's activities, while building political support for civilian institutional resistance to government retrieval operations. His efforts revealed growing congressional concern about classified research programs that operated beyond oversight and accountability mechanisms. The confrontation between civilian medical ethics and government authority reached critical intensity as Agent Kellerman issued final demands for institutional cooperation with federal retrieval operations. His ultimatum revealed government willingness to use force against civilian institutions, while demonstrating the extent to which Black Phoenix program operated beyond normal legal limitations. Dr. Hayes, Kellerman stated during the final negotiation session, "Your continued resistance to federal authority constitutes obstruction of national security operations. Your cooperation is required under emergency powers that supersede civilian institutional protections and constitutional limitations. Compliance must be immediate to avoid more direct federal intervention." Hayes responded with institutional determination that reflected the hospital's commitment to patient protection despite government pressure and legal intimidation. Agent Kellerman, "Our obligation to protect patients from unethical research programs transcends federal authority and national security claims. Agent Park has requested sanctuary from research activities that violate human rights and medical ethics. Our decision to provide protection establishes civilian medical institutions as defenders of constitutional principles against government programs that operate beyond legal accountability." The final confrontation revealed the fundamental conflict between government authority and civilian institutional autonomy that characterized Agent Park's case. The hospital's resistance to federal retrieval operations tested constitutional protections and medical ethics against claims of unlimited government authority over enhanced operatives and classified research programs. Agent Lisa Park prepared for the possibility that government retrieval operations would employ force against civilian institutional resistance, understanding that her enhanced capabilities might be necessary to protect the medical staff who had risked everything to defend her. Her modifications provided tactical advantages that could be crucial during confrontation with specialized government operatives. The tactical situation approached critical decision points, as government and civilian forces prepared for potential confrontation over Agent Park's custody and the broader questions of institutional autonomy and patient rights. The hospital's commitment to protection would be tested against government determination to maintain operational control over enhanced assets. Sarah understood that the decisions made during the next few hours would determine not only Agent Park's immediate safety, but establish precedents for civilian medical institutions confronting government agencies that operated beyond constitutional limitations and ethical constraints. Her medical oath demanded protection for patients regardless of political pressure or personal risk. Torres implemented final defensive measures while coordinating with civilian law enforcement agencies that possessed authority to challenge government operations that violated constitutional protections and legal procedures. His tactical planning balanced institutional security with legal strategies that could limit government authority over civilian medical facilities. The confrontation reached resolution when federal court intervention halted government retrieval operations, pending judicial review of constitutional questions surrounding enhanced operatives and civilian institutional authority. The legal challenge initiated by Morrison and constitutional law experts succeeded in establishing temporary protection for Agent Park, while requiring government agencies to justify their authority over civilian medical institutions. Judge Maria Santos issued an emergency restraining order that prevented government retrieval operations, while requiring federal agencies to present legal justification for their authority over enhanced operatives and civilian institutional autonomy. Her decision established judicial oversight of government operations while protecting Agent Park's right to medical care and institutional sanctuary. The court order represents unprecedented judicial intervention in government operations involving enhanced operatives and classified research programs, Morrison explained to hospital leadership during the legal briefing. Judge Santos has established constitutional limitations on federal authority over civilian medical institutions, while requiring government agencies to justify their claims of unlimited power over enhanced individuals. Agent Kellerman's team withdrew from Metropolitan General Hospital under court order, while government legal experts prepared constitutional arguments that would justify federal authority over enhanced operatives and civilian institutional compliance. The legal challenge would determine whether constitutional protections extended to modified individuals, and whether civilian institutions possessed authority to resist government retrieval operations. The hospital's successful resistance to government pressure established precedents for civilian medical institutions confronting federal agencies that operated beyond normal constitutional limitations and ethical constraints. Agent Park's case had exposed systematic human experimentation while testing the willingness of civilian institutions to defend human rights against government programs that violated ethical standards and legal protections. Dr. Sarah Chen reflected on the transformation of routine medical care into constitutional confrontation as Agent Park's case established new precedents for medical ethics and government accountability. Her commitment to patient protection had challenged federal authority while exposing research programs that treated human beings as experimental assets rather than individuals deserving ethical treatment and constitutional protection. Agent Lisa Park remained at Metropolitan General Hospital under judicial protection, while government agencies prepared legal arguments that would determine her long-term status and the broader questions of enhanced operative rights and civilian institutional authority. Her testimony had exposed systematic human experimentation while establishing precedents for resistance to government programs that violated human rights and medical ethics. The classification marking that identified her as Subject 347 in the Black Phoenix program had become evidence in constitutional litigation that would determine whether enhanced individuals possessed human rights and whether civilian institutions could provide sanctuary from government research programs that operated beyond ethical limitations and legal accountability. Patricia coordinated with congressional investigators who demanded oversight of Black Phoenix activities while documenting the evidence of systematic human experimentation revealed through Agent Park's case. Her medical testimony would be crucial for legislative action that could establish ethical limitations on government research programs and constitutional protections for enhanced operatives. Hayes managed the institutional transformation required to provide long-term sanctuary for Agent Park, while coordinating with legal experts and human rights organizations that were challenging government authority over civilian medical institutions. His administrative leadership had established Metropolitan General Hospital as a symbol of civilian resistance to government programs that violated constitutional principles and ethical standards. The federal court proceedings revealed the complex intersection of constitutional law, medical ethics, and national security considerations that characterized enhanced operative rights and civilian institutional authority. Judge Santos's decision to halt government retrieval operations had established judicial oversight of federal agencies, while protecting individual rights against government programs that claimed unlimited authority over modified individuals. Morrison continued developing constitutional arguments that would limit government authority over enhanced operatives, while establishing civilian institutional rights to resist federal retrieval operations. Her legal strategy emphasized constitutional protections and medical ethics that superseded national security claims and government assertions of unlimited authority over classified assets. The legal precedents established through Agent Park's case would influence future confrontations between civilian institutions and government agencies that operated beyond normal constitutional limitations and ethical constraints. The hospital's successful resistance to federal pressure had demonstrated civilian capability to challenge government authority while protecting individual rights and institutional autonomy. Agent Lisa Park began the process of testifying before congressional investigators who demanded accountability for Black Phoenix activities while coordinating with human rights organizations that were documenting systematic government research programs. Her enhanced memory provided precise intelligence about research facilities and experimental procedures that violated ethical standards and constitutional protections. The testimony revealed research programs that had created hundreds of enhanced operatives through experimental procedures that treated human beings as government assets rather than individuals deserving ethical treatment and constitutional protection. The scope of systematic human experimentation exceeded anything in modern medical history, while demonstrating government willingness to violate human rights in pursuit of enhanced operational capabilities. Sarah continued documenting the medical evidence of experimental procedures while coordinating with research institutions that were investigating Black Phoenix activities and developing ethical frameworks for human enhancement research. Her medical expertise would be crucial for establishing standards that balance scientific advancement with ethical protections and individual rights. The congressional investigation revealed government research programs that operated beyond oversight mechanisms while systematically violating ethical standards and constitutional protections. Agent Park's testimony exposed experimental procedures that treated enhanced operatives as expendable assets rather than human beings deserving medical care and legal protection. The Black Phoenix program was officially terminated following congressional investigation and judicial intervention that established constitutional limitations on government research activities and enhanced operative rights. The research facilities were closed, medical staff faced prosecution for ethical violations, and administrative personnel were held accountable for systematic human rights violations. Agent Lisa Park received permanent civilian status and constitutional protections through legal precedents established during her case, ending her classification as government property while establishing rights for other enhanced operatives seeking sanctuary from research programs. Her transition to civilian life required ongoing medical care for enhancement complications while providing testimony that exposed systematic government research violations. Dr. Sarah Chen received recognition for her commitment to medical ethics and patient protection during the confrontation with government authority, establishing her as a leader in defending civilian institutional autonomy against federal agencies that operated beyond constitutional limitations. Her medical expertise continued supporting enhanced operatives seeking sanctuary and ethical medical treatment. Metropolitan General Hospital became a specialized treatment center for enhanced individuals seeking medical care and protection from government research programs, establishing protocols that balanced scientific understanding with ethical treatment and constitutional protections. The institution's resistance to federal pressure had created precedents for civilian sanctuary and patient rights that influenced medical practice nationwide. The legal precedents established through Agent Park's case transformed constitutional law regarding enhanced individuals and civilian institutional authority, limiting government power over modified persons while establishing judicial oversight of research programs that claimed national security exemptions from ethical standards and legal accountability. The aftermath revealed systematic government research programs that had operated beyond congressional oversight while violating constitutional protections and medical ethics on an unprecedented scale. The exposure led to comprehensive reforms in research oversight, enhanced individual rights, and civilian institutional authority that prevented future violations of human rights and ethical standards. Agent Lisa Park's courage in seeking civilian sanctuary had exposed research programs that treated human beings as experimental assets, while establishing constitutional protections for enhanced individuals and civilian institutional rights to resist government overreach. Her case became a landmark in constitutional law and medical ethics that influenced future confrontations between individual rights and government authority. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.